Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the How to Submit a Winning Entry webinar. I've been doing this for several years. My name is Kathy D'Amato, and I am this NAIOP staff person for the awards committee. I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I've seen a lot of things come through, and I hope that some of the things that I've seen and that we pass on to you today will be helpful. I'm the other speaker today besides myself is John Smith. He is a principal at the Potomac Development Group. John, did you want to say a quick hi?
Hey everyone, good to meet you virtually. Hopefully we'll keep this short and sweet and everyone will learn something.
Great. John is our special events chair at NAIOP, but he has been on the awards committee forever and 2 days, and also he is a former co-chair. So before I get started, I just wanted to say we would like everyone to stay on mute, and then if you have any questions, to please put them in the chat. And then at the end, Tony Gray, who's also NAIOP admin, will go ahead and tell us what they are. So we're going to start here first with, this is the seminar, we're going to start with the agenda. So today's agenda was, we're going to look at the NAIOP Award website. We're going to talk about the entry guidelines, and we're going to talk about the submission process. And then we're going to talk about the behind the scenes and have questions. So let's get started. Let's see. All right, we're going to go. So does everyone see the NAIOP website? Okay, great. So this is the NAIOP website if you've never been there. As you can see, we have all of our different events on the side. You want to go to our awards page. That is our banner for this year, our graphic. This just talks about what the awards is. Everything related to awards is on this page somewhere. You just have to keep scrolling down. So the first thing is the call for entries, which is the time frame that we're in right now. And we're going to go back over the guidelines, which is right here. We're going to go back over these in just a minute. But I want to finish going down. Always have a lot of questions about the intent to enter and why should you do one? It's confusing. I just want you to know that it's mostly for me, but it also helps you. I use it as a metric for judging and making sure that projects that we have on our radar are actually getting submitted. I also, several times, and it happens every single year, is that I will get 2, sometimes 3 people to submit the absolute same project. And one will be from one company and one will be from another company. And I'll connect the two and say, you have to work together. There can only be one submission in a category of a particular project. So if you help me out by submitting an intent to enter and just putting this information in, that's super helpful. It's non-binding. If at some point you change your mind, your pictures didn't come in or whatever, no worries, but at least you will get emails from me, and close to the time, if you are not going to do it, just let me know. The other part of that is, we would like this by August the 21st. And if on August 22nd, you realize you didn't do this, it's okay. Not a problem. You can still submit. Just because you didn't put in an intent to enter doesn't mean you have to stop or reach out to me or whatever. Just go ahead and submit that project anyway. Okay, so the intent to enter, that's where I always get a lot of questions. Next,
Kathy, it's all just to ad lib. It's aside from deconflicting the multiple entries and things like that, it's also for planning purposes. It's if we're also sourcing judges for this effort, and if we have 100 plus submissions, that just we're looking to try and plan everyone's work streams for the judging. So it just helps to understand what kind of load we're looking for from a submission perspective.
well, and that's a good point, because if by chance you enter a data center, I have to have separate judges for that. So It's important to know that up front. So thank you, John. Next on the website is our sample entries. This year we have 6 sample entries. Always try and put some of these out there so you can see how entries can be done. Because if you've never done this process before, it can be intimidating. Sometimes people have done this for several years in a row, and I can always recognize that they've submitted a particular project because I know how they think and how they've put it together. So we have several this year. I'm just going to open up a couple of them just so you can see. This one, the Clarendon West Residential. This year I added a cover page and to tell you guys what stands out about it to me. But all of the cover pages say the same thing, that hard costs have been taken out. That doesn't mean you should not share the hard costs. It's an important metric that the judges need. But when we ask our members to be able to use their projects in a public way like this, we do not want to publicize the amount of money because that is between them and their client and or our judges. Also, we updated our criteria for this year, and so you might find a subheading that's not the same. So this one particular one has a lot of verbiage, but it's all pretty much in one page. Sustainability is the criteria that went away because sustainability is pretty much on everyone's mind these days. So instead, we've changed it up and asked you about innovation and how innovative is your project. More about that later. So you can see they then took this and they provided a variety of drawings to show exactly what they were talking about in their narrative. A big part of what they talked about was the massing of this project and how it had to scale down from sort of the commercial center into the neighborhoods. So they provided a lot of pictures here to show all of that. That was one. I'm going to go to this one, the Micron one. Again, they started out with a picture. They did the write-up. This way they laid it out and they had all the numbers here. And then the numbers ended up corresponding to these lovely floor plans on the last page. So it makes it easy for the judges to track back and forth. And I will say this right now, and we'll probably say it again. If you are doing any submission, you either need to have a site plan or a floor plan unless it's a transaction. So the judges that we usually use are not necessarily familiar with the DMV. And so they don't have a lot of context. So if you're not providing them context, say about the site plan or whatever, then it does a disservice. And I know John is going to talk about that more later. So anyway, so we have all these samples. Please take a look at them. They're just differences, but they were all winning projects last year.
I think the big takeaway, just at a high level, going through those 2 samples, and you'll notice this in some of the others. One did have a lot of writing up front, and we're going to say things like, make sure we don't overdo the narrative, from what we're trying to do is get away from a thesis type document where it's really overly just prescriptive and into the weeds and technical. It takes you a long time to get the point out. You'll see references to using bullet points, and I almost like to, I think some of the most successful ones are almost written sort of like a newspaper, where you see the images and pictures sort of woven into the story as you go through. Just think about these judges are all looking at 80 to 100 of these things, and making it read at a 6th grade level, similar to newspapers, sometimes allows them to get through and understand the point you're trying to make way quicker. There was a lot of conversation last year about the way certain people were writing up their documents, and it was a challenge for some of the judges to get through the dialogue, to get to the point. So just thought I'd point that out right there.
That is and that is exactly true. If you had to read 60 of these, you would understand what we were talking about.
And I'm
Uh,
guilty. I've submitted some awards, and I'm like I strive to get every little detail into there, but it may have been to my demise in some cases. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're writing up your narratives.
and this is where I will say right here, you do not need to have any kind of flowery marketing about your project, flowery verbiage or whatever, and there needs to be um, no paragraph that said this is a winning project because it just it's taking up words that you could use that could better convey your project than to tell the judges why they should make this a winner. The judges kind of get a laugh out of that. So I would say hold off on that and make sure that you have a coherent narrative supported by photos. Um, Next part on our website is how to enter. When you're ready to enter, you go to the online entry. And again, it's another jot form that you have to fill it out. Very important. Make sure you put the project name on there exactly how you want it to go on the trophy. And don't make it like 10 words if possible, because if you've ever seen our trophies, that's a lot of words to get on a very narrow space. Again, same thing with submitting company name. It, you, yes, you can put your company on there, but it should only be a company. It's not like you and somebody else. It always is just submitted by one person. If somebody else is really important in the process, they can get a trophy afterwards with their company name on it. Very important. If you're not the owner of the property or you're the landlord, then you need to get sign off by the tenant and or anyone that is the owner of the property, the building or whatever. Doesn't have to be a formal letter. It can just be an email exchange, but it gives me information on who it was from that company that made the call, because we had a problem way back in the day where somebody was very annoyed that their architect submitted this and there was no approval given, and they were just really unhappy and they took it out on us. And so I'll be honest, that's why we started doing this. Project team members, as you'll see, there's nothing on here that's an asterisk that said you have to do this, but it's free publicity for your team members. And if these are people that you work with frequently, why not just put their names on there? Because if you're a winner the night of, we will highlight all those names from the stage. Now, I will say in the press release, we only put the names of our member companies. So, for example, if your contractor is not a NAIOP member, their name would not be in there. So when you call me the day after and say, but so-and-so, was on the team and I submitted that, and I'll be like, yeah, but they're not a member, so they're not on the press release. And that is, we are a NAIOP. NAIOP is a membership organization, and that's really important to us. And then finally, when you get to the bottom here is where you upload your PDF, your zip file of photos, and what says the optional video, which we'll go into. If you don't already put that into your zip file, all of that gets put right in here. And then after that's all done, hit submit, which will then take you to the payment where you would go here and pay. And this is because I'm already signed in, that's why it comes up here. But this is where you'll go like a regular registration. If you have problems with that, you can always ask. But you need to pay for this before we send it to the judges, which will be about a week after submission. So if you're planning to send me a check, make sure you get it here on time. Otherwise, we're not giving it to the judges. Then we get to our sponsors. We couldn't do things without our sponsors. They're really great. If you want to become a sponsor, we have information here that talks about the different sponsorships and what you get for that. But these are the sponsors that we already have, in addition to our chapter benefactors and our chapter patrons. Then down here is the schedule for the night of. closer to the time, we'll be moving that up after, all the submissions have been made. This will all get moved up. We're going to have a dinner. For anyone who hasn't been around in a while, we haven't had a dinner since 2019. So this is new for some people and welcomed by others who absolutely love that we have a dinner and they can invite their clients. It's going to be at the Ritz in Tyson's Corner. And if you decide and you want to host a whatever, or you just want to stay overnight there, we do have a room block. Cutoff date's October. And then at the very, very bottom here, our last 2 years of winners. And these are parts of the actual slideshow that we did the night of. So if you click on that, you kind of just see how we do it at night. We say what the category is, and then we show 4 photos from your project. And then at the end, we say who was the winner and what was the name of the project. This is why we ask for really nice pictures, the very crisp pictures, because they're going to go up on the big screen that night of, and we need to have good pictures. You don't want blurry anything up there. So check it out if you have questions about what might have won in the past. It's good information. And we also have transaction information there. If you're doing a transaction, that's a far less detailed thing. You don't have to have quite the narrative. We're just asking for specific factors and a couple of photos or renderings or whatever. So anyway, that is our website. Everything is there. Now we're going to go back to the call for entries or the guidelines. Most important, you have to be a NAIOP member to submit. And what do I mean by this? It doesn't mean NAIOP membership is individual. So John Smith is the individual and an individual member at Potomac Development Group. But say Sam Jones wants to actually submit the project on John's behalf, Sam should put his or her name in the thing, the contact information, because I want to know who I can talk to if I have an issue with this project. I don't necessarily want to talk to the member who may not know anything about it and then has to reach out and find out the answer. I want to be able to go directly to them. So I will be able to tell if your company has a member or not. You don't have to figure out in your company who it is. Well, let me back up and say, if you don't know if you have a NAIOP member, you should ask us first, and then we will send you the membership information. So that's really important. That's the number one. Second, location. It's in the Northern Virginia MSA, and it's all laid out here, how far we go. I know a lot of our members are going past that now, but this is where we're staying because then it starts getting into other things. So we've just kept it to the MSA. The time frame, April 1, 2024 through August 30th, 2025. It gives a certain amount of time if you submitted something last year and it didn't win and it's in that time frame, you can resubmit it again this year. Again, even if it was a winner and you want to submit it in a different category, you can resubmit it this year if it fits this time frame. If it doesn't, you're sort of out of luck. This last part is our little disclaimer that we have the right to reassign things to different. And if anyone's on here and got a call from me last year and we said, I know you put it into this particular category, but we actually think it would be better served here, and this is what you need to do to fix that, then yes. But that's part of the intent to enter as well. Because sometimes I look at a project and I'm like, I don't know what that is. And I'll reach out and ask because I want to make sure that you get it in the right category to start with. It's much easier to be in the right category to start and frame your narrative in the right way. Then on page 3, we get down to the different definitions or the different categories. And there's 2 overall categories. One is building and one is transactions. Under building, we have all these different things, including interiors. So adaptive reuse, amenity space, build to suit, capital improvement, community enrichment, all of that comes under building. Transactions are just sales and leases.
Kathy, one thing to point out here, if I can, that there is one new category. It's the interior industrial flex space. You see there on the right there. This sort of came about in the last year or two. We've started seeing some interiors that have been built out in traditional industrial flex space. And they've been submitted in the industrial flex space, but it wasn't really the intent to have a base building go against tenant build outs. And the tenant build outs that occur in these types of spaces don't really get compared to office tenant spaces in the same way. And just seeing the judges last year struggle a little bit with this, we decided to create a new category here for that type of entry.
Yes. I mean, that's part of what our committee does every year is we look at what's out in the market and is there a need for that? And this was a clear need for that. Just like we last year added historic preservation because now a lot of the buildings that were built way back in the day are sadly historic, even though it doesn't seem like they were that long ago. So yeah, so that is a good point. That is our new category for all the industrial people out there. I'm sure you can come up with lots of ideas of what to submit. I did want to just go over really quick the community enrichment because that seems to be sort of a, I don't know, it's it gets a lot of different things submitted in it. In the beginning, when we sort of came up with this, it was more or less what is being done that is good in the community that, say, a developer or owner is doing. It's not just for the project, but it is something that benefits the entire community. You know, it could be part of a proffer or whatever, but it benefits the whole community, not just the people who live and work in that space. So that's kind of what we were looking for with that. Our very first winner was the Suffragette Memorial down at Occoquan Regional Park, and it had nothing to do with anything that was a developer or whatever, but people came together and built this memorial, and it was a fascinating project, and we were happy to give that an award. Since then, we did the Hanson Park out in Loudoun County. Last year, we actually had several things in this we actually gave 4 awards in this category because we had 2 food banks that were in other categories, and the judges were like, this is more of community outreach. And so they actually moved those over, and that's how they got awards. So if you have an idea for a community enrichment and you're not sure about that, reach out to me. We can talk about it and then go forward from there. I want to just say master plan. So here's the thing with master plan. Everything's supposed to be at shell occupancy. That's what it says back there for, like, say, your buildings or whatever. But when it comes to master plan, you just have to have one building or some sort of infrastructure under construction by this date. Now, is it always a good idea to submit it right away? I can't tell you that. Maybe you want to have a little bit more on it before you do it, but you have a 5-year time frame on that. So the project had to be approved within the last 5 years or reapproved or or that the governments have said we're going to not have a sunset on that or whatever. But it's something, there's been some kind of movement by a governing body that said, yes, we're going to do this. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's just a little bit different from everything else. The last couple of years, we've had senior living, affordable apartment or condo under multifamily residential. Just so you know, when you go to submit these, There is not a subcategory for those underneath the category of multifamily residential, or excuse me, even in the interiors, there's not a square footage, because we look at what we get first, what gets submitted, and then we reassign things into smaller subsets, so that the judges are only looking at senior living against senior living, not senior living against affordable or market rate or anything. They're judged within their specific thing. It's just that we just don't make those subcategories available right now. Photo instructions. Wow, there's a lot here. I'm not going to go over all of that. Suffice to say, your photos are important, very important. You only get 8 to 10 that you can submit that we'll put into a PowerPoint, but you can add other photos into your narrative that are useful. In particular, if you're in a adaptive reuse, capital improvement, historic preservation, highly recommend you do before and after photos. You cannot tell a story without some of those photos. And if you're
I'll
going to do
actually,
that,
I'd like to interject. I want to repeat that. Highly recommend to do before and after for those categories. It is like it's a deal breaker almost by the time it gets to the judges. If the judges don't see what it looked like before, it's almost a default to go to the ones they can actually see what the change was from the beginning to the end. So just put that out there.
yes, it is a true thing. And don't just put them into the PDF, okay? Make a collage photo with an inset showing the before and then the after, or put it side by side, or do something like that in some of the bigger pictures, because that it makes for a real statement when we go to show it up on the big screen the night of. So I highly recommend that. What's new this year is we're moving into the 21st century, and we are saying that if you would like to submit additionally from those photos, if you want to do 20 seconds, capped at 20 seconds video about your project, feel free. Sometimes what we're trying to get at is there are sometimes aspects of a project that 10 pictures may or may not be enough to actually understand the scope of the project. And we had this happen. We had somebody that did actually win last year, but they were because they were limited on the pictures. We couldn't really tell as much how great it was. And so they ended up with a merit versus an excellent on a capital improvement one. But I will tell you, when we actually visited the site, because we had an event there, we were just stunned at how great it was. And this is where we thought, this is why we should have a little video, because somebody could have walked through the space and said, when you enter, you see this on the outside, and then you walk through, and then you see this, this, and this, and it would have made a difference. I think the judges would have really understood the space. So
Kathy,
we're giving you the option to do this. You don't have to. The judges will have access to it. We are not going to show it on the day of judging.
hey Kathy.
Yes.
I was going to interject here on this because I know over the last several weeks or months we've been talking about this video about like exactly what it is, or what it isn't, and I know we've struggled to sort of articulate that because it's only 20 seconds. But as you were talking about it, I'm almost thinking like it's like an Instagram reel, and that can take many forms in and of itself. So for what it's worth, that's sort of my opinion on what that would look like.
Exactly. I don't want it longer than 20 seconds. If the judges have a lot of these to look at, it takes a lot of time. But if it really enhances your project, feel free to do it. And I'm interested to see what we get, because then next year we might have to say you can't do X because we got X last year and it didn't really work for us. So anyway, but if you want to submit a video, that's great. We have a whole page of submission instructions. Please follow the directions. Literally follow the directions. Here are all the criteria. As you can see, we've got innovation in there instead of sustainability. We ask for specific things, project size, square foot, construction costs for all projects. But if you're doing, say, a mixed use project, include the percentage of uses, the number of buildings, the site, square footage, all of that. I would highly encourage you to also submit photos of each use, because if you just give us one use and not the other use, it doesn't really help us. And I realize sometimes you don't want to say, oh, the first floor retail is not there yet. I get it. But by not addressing it, then you make the judges kind of more leery of the whole thing. You can say we have a lease for it or whatever, but I know a lot of times from a marketing aspect, you don't want to put that out there. But when you ignore it, then it really stands out more to the judges.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
This page is really important. I've sat in judging for, I don't know, the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and we have a different subset of judges each year. And it's pretty surprising how detailed or not detailed certain judges get. And think of this like following your syllabus and turning in, a paper at the end. And, if you were asked 10 questions, you only answer 9 of them, you'd probably get a bad mark from your professor because you didn't answer one of the questions. Well, I can say several times there have been a debate over 2 projects or 3, and one may fall out of favor because the directions weren't even followed during the submission. I mean, that's to the level of sometimes that judges use to break a tie or so just to reiterate again, make sure you read these line items and check all the boxes.
I was just looking on here. I thought it said that you were not supposed to have your name in here anywhere, but I'm actually not seeing that. But take this to heart, and I'm going to be updating this. Do not put your company name in here, please. That is, we do not want to see that. It just needs to not be on there. Okay.
Kathy, in other words, the company name should only be used on the
Cover sheet.
the cover sheets like that you're filling out on the website, right?
The judge, yes, the judges don't see that. They don't see the permission letter. They just see the package, and the package should not have your name on it. Now, unless you're actually submitting your like headquarters office building, that's a different story. But do not say, and this architect on the team, and name the architect. Just say the architect or the contractor. There should be nothing that says the name of the company. And I'll say that
Any of the team members.
yes, these judging should be blind. And we don't know at any given time. We all have our own biases about things. And so we just try and keep it blind so that we're not, we're just not playing into it. It's not that the judges couldn't figure this out. If they went online, they could probably figure out this was your project. But let's not make it easy for them. Let's make them work for it if they absolutely have to know. Shockingly, several times in the judging, I don't even bring a list. I don't bring the list of who submitted it. And they'll say, who submitted that? Was that the architect? And I'll be like, I have no idea, because I don't want to know. I don't want to know in the judging. I just want it to be totally, clear. They're not going to get it out of me. This is for the transaction categories. We don't ever put as much emphasis on that in the webinar. In some ways it's much easier, some way it's harder. But this is a lot more about quantifying the sale or the lease transaction. And last year we added multifamily in there because we have so many members that are in multifamily. But you have to be able to quantify, why was this successful? Was it just the size of the deal, or was there more? Was there an economic aspect to it, that it's bringing X number of jobs in here? Metrics are good, and they're especially needed in the transaction category, but metrics are good across the other ones. For example, if you have an office building, you're building it on spec, and you're like, but we had X number of leases signed, and then we went through and, now we're at 60% lease or whatever it might be, that it's important. The judges kind of want to know that kind of thing. They're always looking for ways to compare stuff. So let's see. I think we're finished with the guidelines now. And I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. All right. So what happens after you guys submit in September is that I print everything out. And then I have a couple of people from my awards committee, and we literally come in here and we read all of them, everything in a category. We look to see if you put your name on it. We look to see if there's the team member's name in there. We look to make sure that we think it's really in the right category. We just give it the once over so that when we give it to the judges, it's the best product that we can give them.
And for the audience here, it is quite surprising. There are one or two each year that, for whatever reason, it's submitted in a category. And after reading it, it's you almost can see where maybe there was some confusion, but it definitely needed to belong in another category. So don't be surprised if you do get a call from Kathy on that.
We want you to be in the most competitive. We want your submission to be the most competitive it can be. And sometimes if it's on the line and it's in a category that's really crowded, we'll move it to a less crowded category. And that way it will show and shine better and rise to the top better. But it's not just us who do it. It's also the judges. So anyway, with that, your turn, John. Talk about the judges.
So we've talked a little bit about, as Kathy was going through the website, we've kind of hinted to what the judges are looking for. Obviously, it's checking all those boxes that we talked about, and also the narrative being more of that newspaper sixth grade level, putting through, weaving a story together and having the pictures relate to what they're reading, and not making it a 3-page dissertation that isn't supported with the narrative, that isn't supported with pictures. I would say and the last thing about the images is showing the before and after on those certain categories. Those are hugely needed for the judges to understand what you're trying to tell them and why it is award-winning project.
John, can I just interrupt right here? When you said about the sixth grade level, I highly recommend that, first of all, we would encourage you to work with the whole team. Send this around to if you're the architect, to the contractor, to the owner, whatever, to make sure that all the input is correct and that you've told the story in the most complete way. But then give it to somebody who has no interest in that project. Ask them to read it, somebody else in your firm that doesn't know anything about it, just to make sure you covered everything. Sort of like the sixth grade level, you're getting fresh eyes on a project and you might be missing something key, or you might have raised a question about something. They're like, wait, you talk about this, but there's no picture for that. So encourage that.
And Kathy, you just reminded me of the other sort of high level concept here. While we have you guys submitting, I'll call it architectural photos, that's generally what presents itself. We want to remind everybody that this is not an AIA award. This is an award that celebrates our entire membership, which is inclusive of contractors, financiers, brokers, developers, anyone involved. I mean, we've had trade contractors submit for awards. So that being said, we also let the judges know that just because a project isn't some Arlington high-rise beautiful glass shard of a building, but the process and execution got them to the finish line in a Herculean way, and they overcame obstacles that were just totally award-worthy, that there needs to be consideration for those aspects of the projects. And there have been some where the write-ups were entitlements were so challenging, and how they've figured out a way to work with the municipality and sort of overcome this, and they were able to deliver whatever on time, under budget. I mean, I believe there's been some awards in the past that has risen them to the top. So I just want to, that's why it's so important to sort of, you can tell when an architect drafts this narrative. You can also tell when a contractor drafts the narrative, and where Kathy, I think the point she was trying to make is if the team sort of is able to weave all of their own hurdles and the pretty pictures and all of that, and the design elements and what they mean or are referencing, all of that is considered with this. Anything to add to that, Kathy?
No, that's totally it.
And Patty, you had a question as far as suggested word limit. I think there was a limit shown on the last slide. I think it was like 1,000 words, I think.
It's 1,000 words, I believe. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's definitely 1,000 words on the transactions, but let me just look while you are talking. I think I would know this.
So let's see here. I try not to be repetitive here, but as Kathy said, the judges are once the submissions are made, we do our internal NAIOP co-committee chair QA QC process, and the fees are paid. That's when we engage the judges. So I think it's like 2 weeks prior to the actual judging day, we give them the full package. And again, this can be anywhere from, I don't know, 70 to 100 submissions, and all of the judges, which they're typically, we like to have an odd number to be a tiebreaker. But it's either 7 or 9 judges. We give them the 2 weeks to review all of them, and then they show up to an on-site judging day, which takes all day, with notes ready to discuss, debate. It's almost a little bit like a jury, and we systematically go through all of the pictures in one category, and then allow the judges to debate. And from that process, it organically comes down to narrowing things down. Some judges like to talk other judges into their side, and I've seen people change. So anyway, you can imagine this sort of, it sort of goes down a little bit of a rabbit hole with each different category. Sometimes it's extremely challenging because of the sheer volume of submissions, and sometimes it's challenging because there's only 2. Some categories are a little easier to get to the finish line, and some categories could take almost 45 minutes. But in any event, checking all the boxes, like I said, and trying to follow some of these guides that we're talking about. Really, like when the judges get to the finish line and there's 2 or 3, sometimes they're looking for reasons to disqualify one for whatever reason, just so they can make the decision easier. But yeah.
I think if you provide the whole package, if you provide interior and exterior photos, or the before and after, depending on their project, if you've done the narrative in the right way, your project will be in contention. It's usually the ones that aren't as well done that sort of drop off because they don't catch the judge's interest for whatever reason. And I have to give them a lot of credit because it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of work, and they make notes. And when John was talking about how we look at the slide deck first, this is why I said we're not going to look at the videos. But think about this. If they looked at your project on the very first day they had the projects, and then they don't look at it again, they made some notes, and then we're at judging and they see the pictures, hopefully the pictures remind them of your project. But if you had before and after that were really stunning in the PDF, make a couple of those larger ones that go in the slide deck to be the same. That way they're seeing it and they're like, oh yeah. And then it's much easier for them to say, this is why we should award this one, because look at what was here and what they've done there. So,
Inevitably, that's human nature too. The judges will have these, call it they're at the finish line, and they'll be looking at some, and there's always some comparison a little, from time to time, where it's like, well, this project did this and that project didn't do this, but it did. So there's always a little bit of a, um, I don't, I it it's just it's interesting to see the way the different judging panels kind of handle things.
and I
I'll
will
leave it at
say
that.
we're going to have mostly new judges this year, so it might even be more interesting. And so if you were thinking about resubmitting a project, it might be the opportunity to do that because you have different people, fresh eyes looking at it. And that has happened, that things that have been resubmitted actually won the next year. Not only was the write-up different, better, they learned from the first time, but then you had a different set of judges who looked at it and said, wow, this is fantastic. We need to give it an award. So anything else, John?
Uh, I will say this is more of a general comment that I just thought of because I just looked down at my notes on amenity spaces. We are seeing trends now where each year, on down, like right now, I'm not expecting a ton of core and shell buildings, in Arlington to be submitted. I just don't. There's probably going to be a lot of TIs, and we're seeing a lot more. Like over the last 2 years since COVID, we've seen tons of amenity spaces. And so you can tell the trends from what's happening in the marketplace right now drives to certain the cross section of submissions we get through this process. So I would say if you're in and you consider that you're submitting in a larger field, make sure you explain. Just I'm picking on amenity spaces right now. Just explain why your amenity space separates itself from what other people might be doing. Just not only tell the tale, uh, but you need to. I don't want to say, because this is almost contradicting what Kathy said originally, which is why tell it why it's an award-winning project, but to some extent there is some need to put those details in there as far as the differentiators.
I, I see that there's a couple of questions in the chat. A transaction submission, I will look and see for that. If we can get an approval for that, I will add one on I will add it on the
It,
website.
it might have to be heavily redacted though, because I'm sure it has some details.
Yeah, that's part of what it is. I mean, part of, I have to just reach out and find out if I can do that. Melissa says, do you recommend sharing progress photos throughout the narrative as professional photos only? No, I think progress photos have a place. It's almost like a before and after, but that maybe that's part of a little video that you show the progress, like a little timeline, like one of those, those little timeline videos where you see the building just come up out of the ground or whatever. Maybe you create something like that that will help explain it better.
Melissa, I think that's a fantastic question. And I agree with everything Kathy just said. I was actually thinking about it slightly different though. My answer would be, say for like tenant build outs. Maybe not, maybe, but I'm thinking of a specific example. If you have and when I was talking about hurdles that you overcome during the execution process, I'm thinking of the downtown. Uh, I just know of a project that was built for DC Water headquarters, and it was over top of the existing pump station that they built, and so the beam that they had to erect to cross over the old pumping station needed the largest crawling crane. I think either on the East Coast or in the nation or something like that. Some ridiculous story like that. Now, if you had a sentence or two describing that this actually happened for this building, and you had a picture of the crane erecting this thing, I would say yes, put that picture in there. But if it's just sort of a TI build out with open walls and ceilings. I don't, that probably wouldn't rise to something that that would move the needle with the judges. Hopefully those couple of answers gave you some direction there.
Yeah. Any other questions? You can always reach out to me. There's no question that is too dumb to ask. I'd rather you ask it sooner than later, because there's no sense in putting together a whole package and then finding out that you did it wrong. That would just be hard. So the judges, they look at a lot of different things. I watched the judging video from last year again just the other day, and it was like, oh, and if the things that just went over and over and over again, it just kept coming out. It was the before and after pictures. It was the lack of a floor plan. It was the lack of a site plan. They couldn't get context. So it's like they're spinning their wheels. So what you want to do is create the road that gets you to the finish line, and that your submission is going to roll on down the road and hit the final thing. Don't make the judges spin their wheels because they can't figure out what's going on. And the ones that win are the ones that explain it the best. I mean, there was
I think we may have hinted to this earlier, but one of the challenges that our committee has is getting the appropriate judges in here. These judges, just like we're telling you, tell the tale of the whole story, contractor, architect, developer, whatever, whoever it might be. That's the cross section of people we strive to get to judge this. So it's everyone from architects to developers, contractors, facility managers, anyone that knows anything about the development and operation of any kind of commercial real estate. And to that being said, the challenge isn't finding these people. The challenge is finding people that we feel do not have conflicts of interest with our membership. So what that looks like is people from Baltimore, Richmond, maybe someone that's in the institutional space locally that doesn't really it doesn't really circulate with the membership uniquely. So I'm just giving you guys a heads up on the cross section of the judges. They're not typically not local. So that's why Kathy early on was talking about quirks of the DMV area and what that means and what's trophy office might be something different from someone who is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, or New York City, or you know what I mean? So you almost need to just bring them into the DMV. And from some extent, when Kathy and I are in with the judging panel and they're going off the rails sideways, we tend to just bring them back to ground central to let them know that if their conversation is going in a way that's not really dealing with Northern Virginia, we kind of bring it back to get them on task.
Yep.
But it helps if you guys help us with your narratives.
It really does. So with that, and I don't see any other questions, I'm just going to move on, mindful of our time here, to my next thing, my next bugaboo. Don't submit if you don't plan to attend. So many times we don't tell who's going to win. It's a surprise. If you've put the time in to submit, we want you to attend the event. It's networking. You get to see other people. Hopefully you win, but come to the event. It is a dinner this year. It is going to be different. So, if that's what, your boss has always said, oh, I just wish it was a dinner again so we can invite our clients. Great. We've got the
tables of 10, right?
Yes, tables of 10
Yeah.
or half tables or individual tickets, but please plan to attend. And then finally, we're back with the black tie with a twist again. Have fun with the footwear. We started this last year because the Capital One floor is absolutely awful to stand on. So we wanted you to wear comfortable shoes, and people had fun sneakers. People had cowboy boots on. I mean, there was the whole gamut of everything, and it was
I think
fun.
someone blinged out their Pumas.
Yeah, it was great. We loved it. So we're sticking with that this year. Even though we'll be on the carpet, please wear your comfy footwear. Oh, I see. We're just got a couple of questions in. Will there be sponsor? There are sponsorships available. It was on our website, the ones that are still available. Mostly what's available.
Kathy, can we do the Aaron's question? And then what I'd like to do for Hannah's question is literally go back there and just point at a couple. There's a couple that I just like to point out that and just narratively talk about them for a sentence or two. So Hannah, I'll just provide some clarity on those. But Aaron, your question: if we shell building and attend perform stellar fit outs within it.
The answer to that would be yes. I'm thinking. I mean, Aaron, maybe you want to like unmute yourself here. And are we talking like an office building? Are we talking like a flex or like say, for example, it was a flex? You could totally submit that. That would be in the flex industrial category. But if there was a tenant fit out that was just fantastic, that would be in the interiors flex.
So it's a retail building, ma'am. So it was a vacant parcel of land that we had within one of our shopping centers, and we took the land down and built a multi-tenant building with some really high-profile tenants. And again, we did the shell building, so I didn't know if we could also take credit for some of the work that they did, even though, I mean, we did all the base building work and some of their improvements.
So is that like a mixed use building then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you can totally submit that as a mixed use building. I'm in terms of who the tenant is and their great fit out. If you guys did the construction or whatever, that's great. You can submit it, but it would need to be submitted by a member. And
I would say I would say that it can be submitted in the base building, or if it truly is a multi-use building, whichever category that would fit in, you could mention the tenants that went into it in those things, but then you could also submit each build out in the tenant category. And I'm assuming since you were with Peterson, you probably did the lease for those tenant spaces. So technically you would be a member of that project team.
Okay.
And it could be submitted with your permission by your architect or contractor or tenant, whoever is the member. Is that
okay? Yeah, understood. Yep, that's clear.
And we can talk with you more about that offline too. That was a good question. Because things can, if you're presenting, like say you put in a master plan, you can put in a master plan one year, but if the first building goes up, you can put that building in the next year, and you can continue to put the different buildings in. And if your master plan didn't win in the first year, but once you got some buildings up, feel free to resubmit it under master plan. There's nothing that said it can't be, halfway built out or whatever. We're just saying at the very bare minimum, there has to be something going on before you submit. So,
Great,
anyway.
thank you both.
Sure. Okay, so you wanted to go back to sponsorships, John?
Yeah, I thought the first time you perused it, it was a little quick, and I thought I might just point at a couple of them just to explain, and it might help these guys, in their decision making.
Okay, so you know how technologically challenged I am. Are you seeing my website and I'm pulling up sponsors? Okay,
We're seeing
perfect.
it. So Hannah, and well, for everybody, it's the way we work these larger sponsorships is sort of right of first refusal from the previous year. So Clark has perennially been the centerpiece sponsor, and they've continued to do it. The ones that generally are, if you page down, the ones that generally are out there, I'm thinking Door Prize and Night of sponsors.
Well, we have one, the Encore sponsor, which is the after reception. And then we also have the water bottle sponsor, Door Prize.
By the way, some of these seem like a little NASCAR-ish, but I mean, the water bottle, we've had the people that do that, you're thinking almost whatever, 600 people picking up your water bottle to drive home. I don't know. It kind of gets the brand out there. And that's a good one.
Yeah, it's $2,000 plus whatever you pay for the water bottles.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
But the door prize has been one of the most successful things that we have done. And if you've ever attended a NAIOP Awards and seen the door prize videos, they are incredible, and they've just gotten better and better each year. And so basically you pay $1,500 to us and it provide $1,000 prize. And then you make a video, and the video talks about your company or what your prize is. You know, I want to say that there were some last year that were so outstanding. The Pisano one was, you know, Bros and Pros. That was absolutely excellent.
That was
Come on,
actually
throw some love
ours.
to PDG.
I know. I thought that was you, Hannah. Yes,
Yes,
that
that is
was one of the best. And so I don't know how you guys can live up to that this year, but if you do it, I can't wait to see.
We're going to try for sure.
Okay. So you know, there are opportunities. The code check is possibly already done. Just if you want to be an excellent sponsor, if you're not already a patron or NAIOP benefactor, and this will just mean that your name will go on the invitation. It'll be on our website the night of. It'll be out there. It's nothing major. Basically, it's just $1,000 and it's your logo. The other ones, you kind of have to do a little bit of work, like, well, not the code check necessarily, but like the door prize or the water bottles.
Yeah, that door prize is really fantastic. It's just it just for all you guys' awareness, it's great publicity for your firm, but it really helps Kathy and me and the committee run the show so much more efficiently. Because before we started doing these door prizes, we had, you know, if you have 800 of your closest friends were in there all walking around and leaving to go to the bar outside. This strategically placed door prizes throughout the event gets all the butts and seats, and they stay there so they can win door prizes, and we can get through the program so much quicker and more efficient. So it's really whatever the opposite of a double-edged sword is. It's really a kind of a win-win for the door prize sponsors, but also the program itself.
And we've had some really, really great prizes. So, and I already know that the two of the people that have signed on, they're doing their same prize again, which is Washington Workplace is going to do their Nordstrom, $1,000 to Nordstrom. And then IMEG is going to do Nemacolin Woods. So if you're looking for a vacation, be perfect. So first in on the door prizes gets to choose what they want to do, because we try not to have two of the same things. So I'll just throw that out there. And with that, if there's nothing else, I really hope that we'll see your projects. I track projects. I'm constantly reading everything, seeing signs out there, writing down projects. I have a bunch of people in my sites right now, and you're probably going to be hearing from me, like, are you going to submit this project? Or you might be hearing from somebody else on our committee, because we kind of track, but we don't know everything. And so if you've got a great project, we definitely want to see it. That's what makes the awards. The awards is not just the dinner or the reception or whatever. It's actually, you know, providing opportunities to see these great projects in our Northern Virginia area. So with that, if there's no other questions, I say good luck. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. My information's on the website, or you can just call at NAIOP or whatever, but I'd be happy to talk to you. Oh, shoot, we just got a new one.
Just some thanks.
Oh, just thank yous. Okay, great. Love it. Well, thank you for coming, and we stayed a little long. I'm sorry, but I hope you found it beneficial. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.